CEO Day is on the agenda, CEO Day 2024, and that means also automatically CEO of the Year Award. And in this episode we got Ipek Ozsuer, and she is from DSM Philips. All right, what we're gonna do? We're gonna have a great discussion. Looking forward. Yep, if we say it's this time of the year again, it's all about CEO Day 2024, and then automatically we're gonna have a great broadcast about the CEO of the Year Award. And we got 3 nominees, and in this episode we got the lovely Ipek. Welcome.
Thank you.
I trust you're not nervous.
No.
No, that's good.
Maybe a bit.
Maybe a bit. That's a good one. That's the good tension, so to speak, right? So, but we also have a fair discussion with some great tech leaders. So I got Joost from KPMG. Welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
I've got, of course, Barry from BCG, Boston Consulting Group. Welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
And I got Michiel, and Michiel is from Palo Alto Networks. Welcome, Michiel.
Thank you, Rob.
So before we will deep dive and put you in the spotlight, Ipek, we're going to have a little discussion here, Barry. So if we look to this whole black box of CIO award, right? That's often say, well, it's a black box, we don't know, blah, blah, blah. Can you take us along with what are we really doing?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's actually not a black box. It's a very intense process. And I think, Ipek, you've seen it's a very intense process. We scan the market together with the CIO community around all the big transformations happening headquartered in the Netherlands. And then we really narrow that down by discussions with the individual candidates, as we've done, Ipek, and we really understand what is at the heart of the transformation. But that's not the only thing, Rob, that we've done. We've also talked to the individual teams of the tech leaders, which creates a very insightful feedback around what's really happening in the detail of some of these elements of the transformation. Then I think you yourself, Rob, you'll validate that with the key board members and executives to also really understand it's nice to talk about digital, AI, technology, but what's in there in terms of real value delivery? And then I think we get back to the survey that we've done with many other of our clients and corporates around the world in terms of how do we stack up in terms of overall maturity of the organization. And we'll get to talk a little bit about this. And that's where Ipek, as a tech leader for DSM Firmenich, has demonstrated to make huge progress in a very complex setup. And we'll deep dive that into the episode of today.
Yeah. So let's start here, Ipek. If you are looking to today's dynamics where you're in, so besides, of course, the merger, right? That's a heavy one. Besides transformation from the back, but also going forward, looking to the transformation, going to the business outcome. So the dynamics today, where are you?
Yeah, so indeed the merger plays a very important role of bringing 2 companies under one umbrella. Next to that, we also announced a large carve-out, which is carving out almost 1/4 of our business with animal nutrition. So these are dynamics that take you away from focusing on the transformational elements because it takes you back to the foundation, creating IT from scratch, also bringing IT together. But next to that, we are now much more a consumer-centric industry. So with that, there are lots happening from market trends in terms of changing consumer behaviors, regulatory changes, supply chain preferences that we need to take, sustainability. So how do you keep up with all those business dynamics at the same time, building stronger foundations as you build the company? So that's a bit the world that I'm a part of now.
Right. So, and if you look to that, Joost, the discussion here is multiple transformation at one take, right? Is that the way to go?
I think you have to be honest. My point is always to try to make things simple. So indeed, prioritize and go for the right ones. But I think it's inevitable that you do them multiple at the same time. You'll always have multiple topics at your agenda. You know, it can be regulatory, it can be a carve-out, it can be an acquisition, etc. Right. So
Right.
That's a challenge.
Bringing that also to the second one, and we will peel that onion, so to speak, in this half an hour discussion. Digital growth versus resilience, another dimension here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, something we see across a lot of companies, including DSM-Firmenich, of course. I would say that certainly from a security standpoint, these divestments or these mergers are a big impact, right? And regulatory plays along, compliance plays along, but I would say also the business strategy behind it is very important. And do you keep it separate? Do you integrate it? Is it one brand? Are it multiple brands? It always impacts on the security strategy as a whole.
Right. So let's look first in the context of DSM-Firmenich, right?
Life is about balance. Balance between individual wants, collective needs, and the demands of our planet. But forget sacrifice or compromise. We combine the essential, the desirable, and the sustainable to ensure all life on Earth has what it wants and what it needs. At DSM-Firmenich, we make delicious, nutritious food more accessible to all. We help farmers thrive within nature's limits. We enrich staple foods to improve the health of millions. And we create fine fragrances that boost concentration, creativity, and mood. It's complex stuff, but the outcome is simple. We enrich life for the many, while nurturing it for all. Our two companies form a single force for good, full of life in all its glory, as innovators in nutrition, health, and beauty. Together, we bring progress to life. Together, we are DSM-Firmenich.
So, and how easy and lovely that shows here, right? So how complex is, let's say, the first stage, getting your house in order?
Yeah. As you can imagine, both companies luckily had very strong foundations, but when you bring it together, you touch that foundation again. So it's not only about name combination, but it's about cultures coming together, ways of working coming together, technology backbone coming together. So what we had to do is, I think what helped a lot is a very strong brand that we are all united behind. And I still have goosebumps. I wouldn't be working for a company if it was not for the purpose. So, and the moment I heard about the brand, that made me excited. Then after that, we all started working to make that dream happen. So as we discussed, it's about prioritization to say, okay, what do we need to do first? Right. And for us, it was to ensure we seamlessly operate as one company. So which means the infrastructure, workplace, so wherever you go, you need to be able to feel one. Right. And technology plays an important role in that, so people don't realize it. But if you had different workstations, if you are not able to communicate as one company, that's by default a very wrong foot that you have of starting the integration. So it played a very important role of bringing it together. And gradually we started looking at what are the fundamentals that we need to get in place, like the HR systems, the finance systems, then slowly transforming to become category of one where we need to differentiate.
Right. So how difficult is that, Barry? If you, A, you got this merger, and B, you want to step up the plate regarding the improvement of your backbone.
It's unbelievably complex. And when I look at Ipek and her team, I look at ambition, passion, a very close alignment with the purpose of the company, but it's highly complex. You have a new tech executive, relatively new tech executive in this context, then the merger happens, and before you have reconsidered what that merger means, you have a huge announcement around the divestment, then you need to bring leadership teams together from an overall change journey, and on top of this, you need to also think some of the basics in terms of what we typically refer to as the back end. But that drop is not enough because you still need to continuously win in the front end, in the market, and being there with the customers. I think stability, the feedback from the team around Ipek has been like it's a rock, it's stable, and managing, orchestrating all of that change across these complex factors, I think, Rob, that describes the complexity that Ipek has been managing. And I think that's also why she is one of the 3 final nominees of the selection.
Right.
Yeah.
So to go a little bit in depth here, Joost, so if you really talk about those 2 elements, right? So often seen as, do you need them go parallel, or where do you speed up, right? So if you take some examples from your customer base or the conversations you have, right? So where lies that in depth of that adoption perspective, for an example, right?
Let me understand the question. So what 2 elements do you exactly mean?
So you can't go alone with, I focus myself only on the back end, right? Get my house in order. So you need to work similarly, directly also on getting your front end. But there's always an adoption issue, right? So how are those discussions going, right?
This is, I think, in my clients, this is the most difficult discussion that's going on, right? So I do a lot at financial services. It's a totally different business, but I think dynamics are similar. What you see in my clients is that their IT backlog is kind of overloaded with all regulatory stuff, legacy, security issues, and then they have a very small portion of effort and money available for actual innovation and to the front end. But as you said, I think that is where the money comes from, right? You cannot just do only backends, because then in the long term you're going to be out of business. And the challenge in there is indeed the focus, again, the prioritization. Topics like portfolio management is getting more and more important. And try to create more simple IT landscape, right? Try to consolidate, try to get rid of the old, so that you have like more simple landscapes to innovate, so that it's easier to do your regulatory stuff, easier to do your innovations. That is, I think, the key challenge I see at my clients.
Right, and if you add to that, let's say, embracing big data, the usage of data, well, you have to create that advantage, right? So add to that big data, add to that AI. What does it mean if you look to that pendulum swings of how do you rebuild your stack, right? And how do you get your resilience done, right?
It's something top of mind of any of our customers, to be honest. And I think it starts with visibility. And with visibility, I mean that you have great insights on what's going on within the company. Also from a data perspective, rich data sets are critical. And also that you have actionable insights, real time, that you can work upon. Because if you have data that's old, you're always running behind. So it's key to have real-time information where you can decide the actions that you want to take as an organization. And AI plays a very pivotal role in that.
Right. So if you look to that discussion, Ipek, so let's assume that we are done, right, with getting the house in order.
In order.
You got the merger done. So now we're getting to the interesting stuff, right? So we're going to look to the business outcome perspective, right? So one of the topics, your favorite topics, is data, and especially from an advantage perspective, right? And the usage of AI, right? So where are you on that journey?
So we have different pockets of maturity. So where we are coming from, both legacies they have invested in creating some assets. But what we didn't do well was continuously managing it in a way that it was scalable and reusable. So what we have now started doing better is to govern that data in a way you can continuously get benefits, especially in the time of the generative AI and AI. So the algorithm part, or the models, you can see that they're becoming more and more commodity. The real advantage would be to be able to apply it on your own data. And in order to do that, you need to have a pretty well-managed ecosystem to be able to do that. And that's what we started doing much more intensively, is to say, how are we going to treat data as an asset and a competitive advantage, where the accountability is not only with the technical teams, but it's also with the business domains that we're working with. Give the ownership I don't like the ownership because it's company's asset, but at least you can call it the guardian role to the necessary domain owners, make them a part of the whole management process of how you are dealing with your data. And now from there on, start building a very, very solid foundation. Again, so we have different maturity states, but what we started doing is this activation of properly managing our data assets. So we defined 12 domains that we said, okay, we're going to ensure we have a very, very good, solid foundation for those domains where you have proper lifecycle management, security, then protection in terms of how you would like to use that data with external parties. So if you build that strong foundations, you get much more from all the technology that is out there from the Gen AI or AI.
And I think that Rob, this is a really important point. And I think I'd like to also give the perspective of tech leadership and leadership in this world. The CIO of the Year award also celebrates the role of the CIO. But I also think we need to challenge ourselves and make sure that we are becoming a modern leader in technology. And we see that with all three candidates, but definitely also for Ipek, is also simple thing. Who do I report to? Do I have the ability to educate my boards and my executive teams? Do I have a seat at the table at the right moments in time? Because in order to scale some of these data products you've talked about, you need to embrace it from a business perspective. What I see in the discussions with boards, supervisory boards and executive teams is if you do not have a constant education, understanding in simple language what it means, it's very hard to embrace that overall AI and digital transformation element. And I think that's what you've demonstrated in the complex setup that we have in DSM-Firmenich.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the discussions about adoption I think, is the most important one, right?
Correct.
Joost?
Agree. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. Yeah, and following up on your point, I think indeed the tech leader, I think should also be the person you like to work for, right? It's because I think in the world it's all about, we cannot call it war for talent, but the shortage of tech talent. Do I want to work for Ipek? Do I see the company as where I want to build my career as a young, talented tech professional? Yeah. I think that's also a very relevant one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and we add to that, of course, also the dynamics of the CISOs later on, right? Because that's also an aspect in regards to resilience. I just want to circle back to go a little bit in depth, right? So what I find interesting is the effects of heavily using data and going to the AI. And it's not easy to get AI in production anyhow, right? Because a lot of fuss is going around, but really get it in production, really get it into your business models, right? And really drive operating results. That's a difficult one. So take us along with that, right?
Yeah. So the big risk, if you will, in this discussion is what I often refer to as 1,000 flowers bloom. But it is around the boldness, the leaders, including engaging with the business around what are the real trade-offs, what are the real priorities that we set. Because ultimately, and we get to talk about the survey a little bit, about what we've done, it's about business results. It's about sustained business value creation. In order to do so, you need to be bold in setting priorities, daring to make choices. Then the name of the game is scaling. It's not about experimentation in its own right. That's good to learn, to build a bit of muscle, but ultimately it's about scaling some of these things. And I think modern technology leaders allow you to orchestrate some of these priority settings and then doubling down on some of the key investments. And I think you've demonstrated that very well in the context of DSM-Firmenich.
I just want to build on to that. It's very easy to do single use cases. So, and that's what you see a lot. And the real benefit comes from, you talked about adoption as well, is how do you operationalize it? Right. So that's why what we are doing much better now, so we are still in the journey, is to take a much more user-centric approach. Yeah. Meaning personas. So I have an account team. So account team has a digital workplace to work. And how can I make it much more intelligent, augmented, and try to embed it instead of building yet another a chat or assistant, you just make sure that it's embedded. Same goes for our creators. We call them creators, our flavors, our perfumers. So they have their workstations. How can we ensure we give them suggestions on much more sustainable formulations or ingredient replacement with natural products? So these are the algorithms that we are able to build in that increases the adoption. So it's not in a different location that this is not a different application, but it's within the same workspace that they are getting that benefit of this algorithms.
Right. So let's take us a little bit in your context here, Barry, because we want to understand what makes a difference, right? Yep. So because I want to drill down in the next discussion. So how do you orchestrate growth, right, and especially the digital growth, right? So let's take us here. Your surveys.
Yeah, we have a couple of pages. So on the top hand, you'll see what leaders ask us. It is around how do I really build sustained competitive advantage? It's how do I build core capabilities? But it's also around how can I see real impact from deploying digital transformations and AI transformations. What we've done, this is the 7th year where we've done the research. We have over 1,000 respondents in the overall survey set, and we have examined more than 100 digital and AI transformations. And we assess them across a huge amount of corporate factors. It's not just tech for tech, it's across the full spectrum, including the infrastructure all the way to business results and the people journey. And if I can go into the next page, I think that's where it starts to become very interesting, because here you start to see why we do this. On the right-hand side, you'll see what a difference from a sustained business value creation it makes to become a leader versus a laggard. Because look at it from a revenue perspective. If I can show 1.5x on the revenue on a longer period of time, now suddenly, Rob, it's business value talking. It's not about tech for tech. The same goes for total shareholder returns. If I could get to a 1.8x in terms of a 3 years horizon, because I'm a leader and I'm doing the right things in terms of priority setting compared to my laggards in the industry, now I'm suddenly really driving value and I'm becoming a business executive in that regard. The same goes for my return on invested capital. I could get to 1.92x in terms of the returns. The same goes for the innovation speed, and as well as, very important to understand, the employee engagement. Your point earlier, young talent. Do I really want to be there? What's my engagement? Now let's turn a little bit into where DSM-Firmenich under the leadership of Ipek really is. You can see there's a huge amount of speed and momentum in the organization. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of drive in terms of making it better. We are just getting close to where the chemicals and global average is. Let's not get into too many specifics yet, because we're not finalizing the final steps of the process still. But you can see we're really moving up the curve. And I guess that's also, if I'm in the board of DSM-Firmenich, that's what I want to track, because ultimately that's what's driving the overall results for the business. So I think that's a little bit of a color, Rob, to where we are in the context. And I often say, as you well know, data don't lie. This is where we are, and that's where we need to drive in terms of the overall trend setting. Yep.
So if you look to this, right, and you look to the phase, and especially I think what Barry mentioned is from out of a corporate perspective and looking from those boards, driving those business values, but creating not only digitizing your stack, but creating digital business models, operating models, organization models. So how difficult it is if you find yourselves also in a position of that growth and that resilience perspective, right? Yeah. Because I want to touch that, because it's a great topic also, right? The usage of data, the usage of AI, yes, we understand. But that resilience part, right? How difficult is that to get constantly in that dilemma here, right? We need to move up, but we also need to be
looking at the foundations.
Yeah.
So probably it's going to come back to what we said is, as you're building your foundations, you need to be very selective in terms of what value you can drive. And if you try to do it all at once, you're going to fail. So here the prioritization becomes very, very important. So that's what we did. So where are then the 3 areas where we think that we're going to make a bigger impact in terms of also the maturity of our businesses, but at the same time continue to build on the foundational portion. So it's being purposefully selected in terms of how you drive, but making sure that it is important to invest, because if you don't have a strong backbone, you would not be able to scale. So you will only have this one-time experiments that you do over and over, and your cost base is going to increase. You would not be able to leverage, and that's the conversation we are having with our boards to say, let's ensure we do these 3 things, do this right, and ensure we build on the success, because that's important.
Right. Right. But that nearly means that you need to design, from a technical point of view,
Correct.
also incorporate that the fact that you want to have these digital capabilities to grow, right? So how difficult is that, Michiel?
It's very complex.
And you are known as an engineering skilled culture as Palo Alto Networks, but how difficult is that, right?
It's very complex. What we see on average, Rob, is that an enterprise has around 50 to 75 security tools in place. They don't talk to each other, it doesn't integrate, and it is not automated. So manual errors, we see that a lot, right? So to Joos's point earlier on, to platformize and to consolidate the application landscape is critical, and make security simple. Leveraging the tools that you have, but also make choices like Ipek were already referring to. Make considerate choices around what is your technology stack, what do we want to achieve from it, but also have some clear, I would say, deliverables alongside that. So for example, mean time to detect, mean time to respond, those are very important elements, and that's what we see across the board.
So maybe add to that, so I can now build on. So what we did early enough, we created what we call a platform-based architecture, because I have 4 businesses to serve, and we wanted to ensure that we have solid foundations with a technology backbone where cybersecurity is embedded. So it's security by design, secure operations, and then a data layer. So a core, you can call it ERP layer, and on top of it, 9 business platforms. Right. So that's what we are now ensuring, that there is a standard common framework that we apply across all different businesses to ensure the resilience is there by design.
Is this the way to go in this design principle, Mary?
It is absolutely the way to go, and it's also not trivial, Rob, because the way that you've just articulated, it sounds that's very logical. But technology-wise, and again, I just keep on reminding ourselves, it is not just technology for technology's sake. You need to then also bring the business along. We've talked about adoption on the front end, but think about these things. You can go horribly wrong when you design it properly, but you're not taking the business along, and then you'll leave the blanks. So I guess it is a complex setup to constantly orchestrate in-depth understanding and investments, as well as educating and bringing the broader organization along. It is the principle to go by, but it's not a trivial setup in terms of delivery. No. And I guess that's also one of the reasons why Ipek is one of the final 3 nominees, but it is something that you need to orchestrate very, very closely.
Well, that brings me, of course, and I guess we need to touch base a little on that, right? Leadership, right? Is it essential that if you go these routes, that you find yourselves with different leadership models than we have used to?
I think yes. I think I want to throw another factor in this mix, which also comes to leadership, is that what I see at my clients is that especially the board is sometimes afraid of AI. It's probably not allowed, and the AI Act is coming. And I think it's also the role of the tech leader to to say, well, okay, this is not allowed, but this is allowed. So make it very clear, and also maybe you can have policies, etc., boring stuff. But to say, okay, these experiments on the AI, you can just do, just go for it. You don't have to wait for like a 6 months approval. This is allowed. And I think as a CIO or a tech leader, you should promote that and make sure that those exist, so that you don't hinder the innovation on AI. I think that's an important one.
Right. And how important is that to overcome, right? And I want to express that from that leadership perspective, right?
I think you're hitting on a very important point. I really believe that in the world that we live in, we need a new way of approaching leadership, especially in the technology domain. We are here to celebrate the CIOs, and we should, but we should also call for action. And what we do need is a more vulnerable leadership style. Because in the world where it's so complex, even just this morning, what we've discussed, all the components, it is not doable, Rob, to just combine this into one individual. Right. It is being aware of what I need to prioritize myself, what is it that I can do myself as a leader, but also where I can rely on the teams. Right. And the teams are not just technology teams. Again, that is across the board in the organization.
Oh, well, again, just for the discussion's sake, right? We need to strive this a little bit, right? Others got to a boring TV, but I hate servant leadership.
Yeah, servant leadership in its own right, Rob, is not. There's nothing wrong with it. It's about how you execute against this.
Right.
That's really the role. And I think what we need to do is challenge each other constantly on a day-to-day basis in the community. Are we demonstrating the right way of servant leadership? But not just to follow the concept that's been around for 25 years.
Just want to clear that, right? Just want to clear that, all right. Yeah. So, for the viewer's sake, we want to really have some good do's or don'ts, right? So, and please take the camera, Michiel. What is the true do or don't if you go to these massive transformations, global operating companies? You need to move forward, otherwise tomorrow, right? Your competition. Yep. What do you need to do or don't? Right?
We have 3 elements basically, Rob. So first off is fight AI with AI. That's really critical. Look in your technology stack for that. There's a lot of technology out there. Secondly, secure design. I think that's really critical in everything that you do. Every initiative, strategic initiative that's out there, really embed security from the beginning. And third, last but not least, I would say radically simplify your security. By platformization, by consolidation, really make bold choices there and make sure that you have a technology stack that's resilient and that's also actionable from day one.
Right. Joost.
And what I want to add one thing on that, and that is data management, data governance, data quality. I think to be effective for AI, such a massive amounts of data, and you want to make sure it's correct. I think you mentioned it already. I 100% agree with that. I think data governance is the one to go for.
Yep. Very.
Thank you, Rob. So a do and a don't. A do is, I think it's really important in this complex set a bold vision. Involve an enterprise architecture, not from a technology, but an enterprise architecture in setting that bold vision. Incredibly important to follow that North Star. Don't just fuzz around in experimentation for the sake of experimentation. Double down on certain business priorities and then ensure that you truly scale that in the business. That's what I would say as parting thought.
And the last word is always, of course, to the candidate. in this way, Ipek, Ozsuer, for your colleagues.
Yeah.
What would your pearl of wisdom would be?
So I'll just build on what was said. And for me, do is take along the journey all your team and all your peers with you. So that's definitely the do. And don't, for me, is tech for the tech. So I think we discussed about it. So if tech loses relevance, then it just becomes a nice toy. It's not creating value. So that's the advice that I'll give back.
Right. And you would have a different discussion with Dimitri anyhow then, right?
Definitely.
Probably, right. I thank you all. It was great to have a little spotlight on Ipek, right? But also fair discussion about the do's and don'ts, right? Because we need to be stepping up the ladder, right? We need to push. Do I need to announce something else? Yes, of course, CIO Day. And when? November 19 in the NBC, Nieuwegein. Do I say anything else? No, later.
In the AI era, anything seems possible. Creating value, transforming industries, even saving lives, and changing the way we do business. From small steps to solving seemingly impenetrable problems. You can. You can with AI. You can with KPMG.